Hi, I'm Nadeem Iqbal, and today I'm going to talk about chapter number 11, and that is risk allocation and liability. All risks are rightfully the owner's unless transferred or assumed by any other party for fair compensation. So the owner of the project is to start with, that person is the um, owner not only of the project but also of the risks. But he or she, the owner, then transfers those risks over to another entity, and this entity could be a contractor, uh, which could take the risk on behalf of the owner. Risk management deals primarily with the following concepts: minimizing risk, regardless of whose risk it is; equitable sharing of risks among the various project participants. So you see, like more risk the owner gives to the contractor, the more compensation the owner has to give to the contractor. So the ideal scenario would be that there is a balance of sharing the risk, so that some of the risk is shared by the owner and some of the risks are shared by the contractor. That way, an optimal price could be reached, which is uh, profitable to both the client as well as the contractor. Scope and applicability to construction types of risk. There are construction related risk, there are physical risk, which are subsurface condition, contractual and legal risks, performance risks, economic risks, political and public risks. You see, there could be physical risks, meaning subsurface conditions, implying that once the contractor gets the project and has to, for example, construct a refinery on a site, the contractor does not know what are the subsurface condition. Are there any rocks under the surface? Is there any other hidden challenges? So these are physical risks. Contractual and legal risk. There are contractual obligations. So those are also considered as a risk because the contractor has to comply to those contractual obligations. Performance risk. There is a risk involved that the project, once it's completed, may not perform up to the specifications. So that is another risk. Economic risks. There is an economic risk available. The economic risk means that let's assume the refinery has been built, but the global conditions are such that the global economy is down. So the cost of the refinery might not be recovered. So there's a risk involved over here. Political and public risk, that risk is also there. There could be a public unrest, there could be a political changes in the country, and in those scenarios, the projects could be impacted. So all these are the different types of risks. Here is an example of the risk register. In a risk register, you have a risk title, risk description. What are the risk causes? You mentioned them over here. What would be the consequences of those risks and how you are going to treat those risks? For example, in Saudi Aramco, for the company Saudi Aramco, one of the risks could be Saudi Aramco manpower shortages. So what it means that the manpower shortages to meet the portfolio demands. What causes that risk? There's not enough qualified manpower in the market. There's unmatched skill set. The skill set is not there. These are the risks. What is the consequence? Well, if there are not enough qualified, so there will be high cost of the projects because you will have to pay more to the employees. There could be potential project delays because of the lack of manpower. So how the treatment what's the treatment? Established recruiting organization headed by a formal manager and full-time staff. So uh, you set up an recruitment organization and you aggressively pursue your recruitment efforts. So these are examples of the different risks, and this is called our risk register. Construction risk allocation to participant. The type of risk like site risk is usually owned by the owner. Then there is a weather. It could be contractor uh, would take that risk. And act of God. This is force majeure. This risk is usually taken by the owner. There could be a financial failure. This risk is shared by the contractor as well as the owner of the company, the construction contractor owner, and as well as the engineering company. Subcontractor failure. If the subcontractor does not perform well, who takes that risk? The prime contractor. That is not a headache of the owner or the engineering company. So these are the different types of risks and who gets the risk allocated. Chapter 12. Pre-construction operations. Pre-construction operations can generally be grouped into 5 phases. Advertise and award, development of quality control program or construction surveillance and inspection plan, field office organization, and pre-construction conference and establishment of a field office. So before the construction starts, there are certain activities that needs to be done. You have to advertise the project, and then award the project. Then after the project has been awarded, you have to develop a quality control program and an inspection program. Thereafter, you will also have to set up a field planning field office. Then you got to do a pre-construction conference. The stakeholders need to sit together and discuss how they will proceed with the construction. Once that is done, then you have to establish a field office at the site. Pre-qualification of bidders. Pre-qualification questionnaires are prepared, which would include an exhibit about the company organization, previous work experience, human resources, project controls, equipment, quality control, project procurement. See, like when you have bidders on a project, you want to pre-qualify them. So what you do, you send out a questionnaire to the contractors. You ask them to fill their company organization. You put their ask them to put their work experience. You ask them to put the completed project details, and then you also would require them to provide a proof that they have completed the project. And many a times it would be a copy of the completion notice. And then you would need the human resources, what skilled labor they have, how they implement their project controls, which equipment they own, and which equipment they are going to procure through a subcontractor. What are their quality control and quality assurance plans? What is the how the project procurement would be done. So based on all this information, you pre-qualify the bidders. Bid bonds. It assures that if the contract is awarded to a successful bidder, that bidder will enter into contract with the owner. After the bids are opened and an award made, bid securities are returned to the bidders, to all the bidders. So bid bonds implying that the contractors who are bidding, they are obligated that if they are the lowest bidder and they get the contract awarded, then they will proceed with the contract. If they walk out, although they are the lowest bidder, then the bid bond may be confiscated, and the other bidders who did not submit, who did not win the project, they get their bids securities returned to them. Why we have the bid bonds? See, like uh, these projects, you see, they cost time and money even to offer the project for bidding. So you only want serious contenders in there. You don't want to have non-serious contractors bidding, because only the serious contractors would have the money to provide a bond. it's a time waste if the contractor wins and that contractor does not proceed. Opening, acceptance, and documentation of bids. Several primary matters of concern during this phase include the following. Receipt of sealed bids are at the designated time and place, confirmation that all bids are responsive, acceptance and logging of bidder's name and bid amount for all uh, responsive bids, summary of all line item prices for all unit price bids. So at this phase where you are opening and accepting the documentation, you receive the contractors, they submit their bids in sealed envelopes. There's a confirmation provided to the contractor that their bid has been received. Mission of the field engineer. The mission of the resident project representative of inspector as the design firm's or the owner's resident project representative is to assure compliance with the plans and specifications. So the primary job of the field engineer is to that person is a company representative. So his job is or her job is to ensure that all the specifications are met, all the plans are met during the construction. Pre-construction conference, it allows the key personnel of both sides to be introduced and the responsibilities and authorities of each can be defined at that time. It's like all the stakeholders, they meet and greet each other. To get a clear understanding of the procedures involved in testing, construction surveys, irrespective inspections by outside agencies, procedures for claims and disputes. So all the stakeholders, they meet and they discuss what would be the processes and procedures. Key dates. The resident project representative should note on the field calendar every date that has special significance on the project, whether it is for tests, special inspection, payment request tests, due dates, delivery dates, or other important milestones. So all the key dates should be on the field calendar every day. Every date should be there. Listing of emergency information, list of all key personnel of the owner, the engineer, and the contractor to be contacted in case. So that list of the emergency information should be established and it should be in possession handy with the company representative or the project management team representative. Starting a project, the notice of award does not authorize the start of construction because no work is supposed to start until after the owner contractor agreement has been signed by both parties. This is very important. Just the notice of award, meaning a contractor has been notified that you have been awarded the contract does not mean that the next day the contractor should start working on it. No, until both owner and the contractor have physically signed the agreement and the contract. Until that point, the construction work should not start. Planning for construction. The planning process should include answers to the following preliminary questions. Long lead purchases. Are there any long lead purchases that could be made at this point? Utility interruptions. Is there any part of the project that will involve an outage of utility service, such as water, power, gas, or other essential services? Temporary utility. Will temporary utility lines be built to bypass the construction area? So all these things are part of the planning. Traffic requirements. When you bring the material over to the site, are there any special traffic requirements? Other contractors, will other contractors will be working in the same area? If other contractors are working in the same area, then you need to consider what would be the impact on the manpower, what would be the impact on the resources, what would be the impact on the traffic and the material available in the market. Time for construction. Is the time allowed to complete the project adequate for location and the season? Is the time realistic? Construction schedules add related to building costs. Unrealistic completion dates coupled with exorbitant liquidated damage charges against the contractor for failure to meet such requirements impose severe financial burdens and undeterminable risks on the contractor. So the dates, completion dates should be realistic, because if the contractor does not follow a realistic completion date, then that would result in a failure of the project. Scheduling methods, they could be different. These are different scheduling methods: bar charts, velocity charts, which are also called S curves, line of balance charts, network diagrams. The bar chart or Gantt chart is used for the representation of the project in which the activities are represented by horizontal segments. So these are the activities is horizontal, like excavation, backfill. Horizontal, of which the length is proportional to the time. So the length is here is the time, here is the length, proportional to the time necessary to conclude the project. So the time required for excavation is 1 week. The bar chart is an effective tool for management of the work in a project. So real life discussion: career in project management and construction management. How can you become a millionaire working in project management, construction management industry? These are the different options. Get a job and get annual increment every year. Start your own construction company. Just keep working hard and hope to get there. Think about it. What's the best way to be successful in project management or construction management industry? That's all for now, and we'll discuss rest of the slides next time.